Okay, if you're a clinical leader, you know this better than anyone. Teamwork is everything. But what happens when the pressure is on, a patient is crashing, and your team just isn't clicking? So, drawing on some really great insights from discussions within the Culture Coalition, we're going to tackle that head-on. We'll explore how we can get our values off the wall and into the real, everyday behaviors that actually make a difference.
Here's a quick look at where we're headed. First, we'll talk about a problem we all know too well, the values on the wall. Then, we'll dig into the real clinical cost when actions don't match those words. But we won't leave you there. We'll introduce a really powerful idea called cultural beliefs, talk about your specific role in all this, and finally, get to the best part, the payoff of building a truly resilient team.
All right, so let's start with a scene you've probably walked past 100 times. You know, that fancy framed poster in the hallway or the hospital lobby. Integrity, collaboration, excellence. The words look great, and they're pretty much everywhere.
But here's the problem. So often, these just become window dressing. We give them lip service, sure, but do they really change how we act in the chaos of a 12-hour shift? That gap between the words on the wall and what we actually do, that's where the trouble starts.
And look, the idea behind them is solid. I mean, organizational values are supposed to be our compass, right? They're meant to be the norms that guide how we take care of our patients. That's the ideal anyway.
But let's get real for a second. When you're in the middle of a code or trying to manage a really complex case, is anyone on your team thinking about that one-word value on the wall? Or does something else, instinct, habit, stress, take over?
And that question leads us to the real stakes here. Because when there's a disconnect between what we say we value and how we actually behave, it's not just some abstract problem. It comes at a very real clinical cost.
And let's be crystal clear, this isn't just an HR issue. This gap is what causes that friction in communication between physicians, nurses, and our APPs. It's what slowly erodes trust, it's a huge contributor to burnout, and maybe most importantly, it can create very, very real risks to patient safety. You see, here's the crucial thing. Every single time a team member sees a behavior that contradicts a stated value, say someone acting completely counter to teamwork, it sends a really loud message. It basically says, yeah, those words, they don't really matter here. And each one of those moments just chips away at your team's culture.
So if those single-word values on the poster aren't quite cutting it, what's the alternative? Well, the answer is to make a shift in our focus, away from those big, abstract ideals and toward clear, actionable language. This brings us to a much more powerful tool, cultural beliefs.
Let me show you what that shift looks like in practice. Instead of just the word collaboration, you create a clear belief. I build bridges. I collaborate outside my department. Instead of excellence, it becomes I embrace transformation. See how specific that is? And notice they're all I statements. They're not just words, they're personal commitments.
What these beliefs do is give everyone a shared playbook for how we're going to work together to get results. They go way beyond buzzwords and give the whole team a clear guide for behavior that everyone can actually use.
So how does this work in the real world? It's kind of a formula. It all starts with the experiences people have at work. Those experiences shape what they believe about how things really get done around here. Those beliefs, in turn, drive their actions, and those actions get the results. Now, here's the key for you as a leader. You can intentionally create the experiences that build the beliefs you want to see.
And that brings us to the most important part of this whole conversation, your role. Your specific role as a physician, nurse, or APP leader in making this happen, right there on your unit in your department.
Now, a really important point here. This is not about changing anybody's personal, deeply held values. We all come from different backgrounds, and that's a good thing. The goal is simply to align on the professional outward behaviors for how we work together as a team. That's it.
So how do you actually do this? It comes down to 3 simple, really powerful actions. Number 1, give feedback in the moment. When you see someone building a bridge, call it out. Number 2, tell stories. In your daily huddles, share a quick example of what Team First looked like yesterday. And 3, recognize people publicly. These simple moves are the absolute building blocks of a great culture.
And when you consistently put in this work, let me tell you, the payoff is just enormous. It's not just about making your job easier. It's about your team's well-being and, of course, the safety and care of your patients.
What you get is a common language to talk about culture. Giving and receiving feedback becomes so much easier because it's tied to behaviors you've all agreed on. And that is what builds psychological safety and trust.
It's the foundation for a truly resilient team that can handle any high-stakes situation you throw at them. When you boil it all down, this is what it's all about. Creating a shared, actionable language that lets your team perform at its absolute best when the stakes are highest. It's the difference between just hoping for good teamwork and intentionally building it.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Pick one of your organization's values. What is one specific observable behavior you can model for your team tomorrow to bring that value to life? Because that one action, that's where this all begins.